Welcome to A Changed Life. This is a podcast about choosing differently, how you think, how you relate, and how you lead yourself. Here we focus on the inner shifts that create real momentum and open up what's possible next. Many people who find their way to this kind of work, this kind of deep work, whether it's coaching or therapy or really getting into podcasts and books and courses, they oftentimes arrive through a door that has someone else's name on it. And that could be a partner that betrayed them, a relationship of another kind that fell apart, a loss that they didn't see coming, and it could be the loss of a person or it could be the loss of a job. What it is it's a version of their life that just stopped. And sometimes it stops suddenly, and sometimes over a period of time, it stops feeling like their own life. They feel really disconnected. And saying somebody is lost in their life, it sounds dramatic, but if you've ever felt lost in your life, you understand what that means. And it all makes complete sense because something did happen, something real, something that oftentimes it cracks the ground beneath you open. So of course, that is the door that they walk through. But here's what I've learned after doing this work for over 10 years with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients and in my own life. The door that brought you here into the work is rarely the actual room that you need to be in. So today, we are going to find that room. If we have never met, if this is the first time that you're ever hearing the podcast, I want to welcome you to A Changed Life. I am Ilyse Craft. I am a coach and an educator, an author, and someone who has spent a long, long time thinking about why people get stuck and what it actually takes to get unstuck. And so there's been somewhat of an equal measure, so to speak, of looking at and really thinking through the characteristics, the personality traits, the behaviors, the patterns, the habits of those that are stuck and stay stuck, and those that start to move and build momentum in the life. And what today's podcast is about is a place where we can change the lens, which is so incredibly valuable. My hope is that when you walk away from this episode, you're able to see something that you couldn't see before, and where the conversation is always pointing forward, not because the past is bad and not because the past doesn't matter, and not because the past didn't hurt or didn't have trauma, but because the past doesn't get the final word. And I couldn't feel any more strongly about that. So today, I want to give you something concrete. This is a framework that I've developed, and it's called the 5 Laws of Self. This is the map that I use with every single person that I work with, whether they realize that I'm using it or not, whether they're coming out of betrayal, whether they're navigating grief and loss of some kind, whether they're rebuilding themselves after that loss. And again, it could be loss of a person, a relationship, a job, a house, or they're sitting with a quiet feeling that somewhere along the way, they stopped living a life that actually feels like theirs. This framework is for all of those people, which honestly means it's for almost everyone. And there is an expression in marketing that says, when you try to talk to everyone, you talk to no one. And I largely believe that. But I do think that there are some things that fundamentally connect us to our human beingness. So let's get into it. Here's where I want to start. And I want to really sit with you in this for a second. When something painful happens, and I mean genuinely painful, the kind that reorganizes your whole life, the brain does something really specific. It locks onto the event, the person, the thing that happened, and it starts running a very focused program. And it sounds like this. I got to figure out what went wrong. I got to figure out who's to blame. I got to figure out how to make sure that this never, ever happens again. And that program, I get it. That program feels really productive. It does. You could be in therapy processing, or you're writing and journaling, or you're reading books on the topic and really studying and learning. You might be in groups with other people who've been through the same or similar thing. And a lot of times you are building a very thorough, very detailed case on what happened to you. And it's understandable, and it's also a very slippery slope. The problem is here. That kind of program that's running, it has no exit, because the brain is not actually trying to heal you. It is trying to protect you. And protection looks like staying close to the threat so that you can manage it and monitor it and understand it and never look away from it. This is neuroscience, by the way. It's not a criticism. Your brain is doing exactly what it is designed to do. That threat response doesn't distinguish between a predator in the wild and a partner who broke your trust. It treats both the same. Stay alert, stay close, don't let your guard down. And, you might be thinking, well, wait a second, if a bear was chasing me in the woods, I would be running away from it. I wouldn't be staying close. So what I'm referring to is how we stay close to situations in our mind and replay the program. And here's what that costs. Every month, you spend living inside the event, replaying it, analyzing it, building your identity around it. That is a month your brain is spending its energy on the past instead of the future. And the brain is remarkably efficient. It will not invest in building new neural pathways towards a life you're not actually orienting toward. This is why people can spend years and years and years in recovery and still feel fundamentally stuck. Not because they haven't done the work, because the work has been pointing in the wrong direction. So I'm not saying stop processing. I am saying at some point processing has to become building, and that transition requires a map. That's what the 5 laws of self are. These 5 laws of self they're not a checklist. They're not 5 steps that you complete in order, all nice and tidy, and then you're done. It's more like a spiral. You move through them. You arrive at something, and then you begin again, but from a higher place. Every time you return to law 1, you are not the same person who started. The 5 laws are: number 1, identity; number 2, orientation; number 3, loyalty; number 4, devotion; and number 5, wholeness. And I want to walk you through each one, not as a definition, but as an experience. I want you to feel where you are in this map, because I promise you, as I describe each one, something will land. So let's get into the first law. The first law is the law of identity. And I know, or I think I know what you're thinking. I know who I am. This isn't my issue. And here's what I found. Most people know who they are in relation to other people. So oftentimes when people are asked, like, who are you? The answer is, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I do this kind of work. That is how we describe ourselves. I am the strong one. I'm the person who holds it together. I'm the one who was betrayed. I'm the one who lost everything. And all of that is real. And none of them are you. Identity, at the level that I'm talking about, is the self that exists underneath roles, underneath the story, underneath the wound, underneath the trauma. It's the self that was there before all of it. Before the relationship, before the loss, before the version of your life that fell apart. And here is the painful truth that most people really don't want to look at. For a lot of us, that self was already compromised long before the event that brought us here. The betrayal, the loss, those didn't create the disconnection. They revealed it. And if you take one thing from this podcast that could really help you, it is that the self was already compromised long before the event that brought us here. And the betrayal, that loss, those didn't create the disconnection, they revealed it. Which means healing isn't about getting back to who you were before. It's about becoming who you actually are, possibly for the first time. That's where the work starts. Not with what happened to you, but with who you are beneath it. So now we're going to go into law number 2. Law number 2 is orientation. And this is the one that changes everything practically, because it's about something so simple it almost sounds too simple. Where are you facing? Think about it this way. 2 people can stand in the exact same moment, same characteristics, same history, same or similar level of pain, and they see completely different things. One of them sees evidence of everything that went wrong, evidence of who failed them, evidence of why they can't trust, evidence of why it's just too late. And the other person sees the same facts and sees something different. Evidence that they survived something, evidence of their own strength, evidence that the next chapter is still unwritten. Same moment, different orientation. I want to be really clear about this, because this is not about toxic positivity and seeing everything just so happy, happy, happy. This is not about pretending that things didn't happen or skipping right over the grief as though you could, because you can't. The grief is real. What happened is real. Orientation is about where you are standing when you look at your life. Are you facing the wound, or are you facing what's possible? And oftentimes when I ask people, show me where the past is, they point behind them. And I ask them, show me where the future is, and they point in front of them. So it's just an interesting test to do with yourself, because in actuality, the past, the present, and the future, they're all in the same place. They're all in the same place. They're all in the consciousness of right now. They don't exist in different places. Again, your brain, and this is neuroscience, and this is how the prefrontal cortex actually works. Your brain will build toward whatever you are consistently focused on. It will create more of what you give your attention to. If you spend most of your mental energy in the past, your brain builds better and more efficient pathways into the past. It becomes easier and easier to go there. The default becomes looking backwards. The work of orientation, law 2, is turning around, not forgetting, not bypassing, turning around while fully knowing what's behind you. Law number 3. Law number 3 is loyalty. And I can't really say that I've really heard anybody talk about this, and I find it to be so important. And the kind of loyalty that I'm talking about is self-loyalty, not self-care. I mean, yes, of course, take care of yourself, but I'm not talking about the bubble bath version or getting a massage or any of that. I'm talking about something that is much more fundamental. The act of choosing yourself consistently, even when it costs something. So here's a question that I want you to sit with for a minute. When did you stop being loyal to yourself? Can you pinpoint it? Because most people I work with, when we trace it back, it didn't start with the event that brought them here. It started much earlier. There was a slow accumulation of moments and events where they chose the relationship over their own truth, where they themselves minimized something that mattered, where they stayed quiet when they should have spoken up, where they gave and gave and gave and told themselves that's what love is, when really it was fear. Self-abandonment gets so normalized we don't even recognize it as a problem. We call it being a good partner, being loyal to our partner, being devoted, being selfless, as though that's some great honor. And it is, but not when it comes at the expense of yourself. And I want to be gentle here because the intention behind these things, they are so real. People aren't self-abandoning because they're fools. Even though I have heard that many times in many sessions, I feel like such a fool. They're doing it because somewhere they learned that their needs were just too much, or that their worth was conditional, or that love required self-erasure. That's not a character flaw. That is a wound. And the 5 laws are how you're going to heal it. So loyalty is the moment that you stop. The moment you say, I choose myself, not instead of other people, not at the expense of love, but as the foundation of it. You cannot sustainably give to others from a self you've abandoned. That is not noble. That is called a slow collapse. So now we're going to move on to law number 4. Law 4 is devotion. And this is where the neuroscience really becomes important, because this is the law that most people skip, and it's the one that determines whether anything actually changes. Here's the thing about loyalty. It's a decision, and decisions are made in a moment, in a flash of clarity. You ever get that? That moment where you're just so clear? Somewhere when you're in a conversation and you just get this knowing, and it's so clear. And it could be a podcast episode that lands, or a reel that you listen to, or a quote meme that you read. And somehow it lands differently than it had before. Devotion is what you do the next morning and the morning after that. The brain, and I can't say this enough, the brain does not rewire from a single moment of insight, of that aha moment. The brain doesn't rewire then. It rewires from repetition, from pattern, from doing the thing over and over until the new neural pathway becomes stronger than the old one. This is why people can have the most profound therapy session of their lives, feel completely transformed, go home, and within 48 hours be back in the exact same patterns. Not because they're broken or resistant or not trying hard enough. It's none of that. It's because insight without devotion doesn't stick. The old pathways are too strong. You're swimming upstream and the current is really strong. Those pathways, they have had years and years of reinforcement, and the brain, given a choice, will always default to what it knows. Devotion is the practice of choosing yourself not once, but repeatedly until choosing yourself just simply becomes who you are, what you do, who you be. Until it stops feeling like effort and it starts feeling like your natural nature. This is also where I see people confuse discipline with devotion. Discipline is about willpower. Devotion is about identity. You can start to see how all of these work with each other. You don't have to force yourself to do things that are natural to who you are, which is why identity is law one. Because when you know who you are, devotion isn't hard. It's just being yourself consistently over time. Now we're going to go to law number 5, which is wholeness. I want to say something about this word that might be different from how you may have heard it or how you used it before. Wholeness is not a destination. It's not a place that you finally arrive like some nirvana after you've done enough work. It's not the reward at the end of the process. Wholeness is an orientation, a way of moving through your life, a relationship with yourself that is so deeply rooted that says, I'm not waiting to be fixed before I start living life. Because here's what happens for so many people, and this might be you. They put their life on hold for the healing. They'll start dating again when they feel whole. They'll pursue the thing that they actually want when they feel, air quotes, ready. They'll give themselves permission to be happy when they've done a little bit more work, after the intensive, after the program, in the spring, after the holidays. And listen, I understand the impulse completely. It comes from a real place of wanting, deeply, deeply wanting to show up better, of not wanting to bring the old wounds into this new way of being. But wholeness doesn't come before the living. It comes through the living. And the other thing that I want to say about wholeness is that it's not the end of the spiral. When you arrive at something that feels like wholeness, and you will know it because it feels like a mix of peace and presence and possibility all wrapped up together, that wholeness deepens your sense of identity. And the whole process begins again because you're not the same person who started. And that is not you going backwards. That is growth. And that is what a changed life actually looks and feels like, not a fixed life, an expanding one. So here's what I want to land with you today. Wherever you are right now, whatever door brought you here, whatever the event or the person or the circumstances were, I want you to consider that it might have been pointing you toward this, not toward healing the wound, toward finding the self. Because the quality of your life and the quality of every relationship you have, including the one with yourself, is directly tied to how well you know yourself, how clearly you can see, how loyal you are to who you actually are, how devoted you are to becoming that person, and whether you are willing to live fully while doing it. That's the framework. Those are the 5 laws. And here's what I know. Hearing this once is a beginning. Hearing it lands something, I hope. But the living of it, that's where the real change happens. That's what this podcast is going to keep pointing you toward. Every episode, every conversation, every story we tell, and every question that we sit with together. It will always lead you forward. So, if something landed for you today, if you heard yourself in one of those laws, if you had one of those moments that I talked about where something cracked open, I want to hear from you. Come find me. Let's have a conversation. This might be your time to really lean in to really deeply developing your 5 laws of self. There's a link to book a call in the show notes. These calls are not to sell you on something. I don't do that. This is to have a conversation. And if there is something that I do or something that I have that I feel would be a fit, I will tell you about it. But I believe that you have full agency and that you know and that you can trust when you're going to make a move. This work is relational. These conversations are relational. I just do not see them as sales calls. So I want to just take that off the table. And I actually don't even bring up programming if I don't think that there's something that's appropriate. And I might even refer you out. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And perhaps you and I will do it together. So thank you for being here. This is a changed life. And it starts with a conversation like this. And I will see you in the next episode. If something in today's episode resonated with you, you'll find a link in the show notes to book a free consultation call. Or you can visit ilyse.com to explore my programs and free resources. Nothing changes until you do. And when you do, everything does. This is a changed life. Not all at once, but for good.